Here we are with all the tangles that I drew in week 3 of the 100-day project, the periodic table of tangles. So on day 21, you saw me draw, if you watched the video, last week's video, you saw me draw Doodah, Mir and Shattuck. So I don't need to talk about those ones, but they led me to Hybrid. Now, Hybrid is the first of a number of tangles I explored, which involve auras, but the auras are put on in a particular way, and what they do is they alternate. So you come in from one direction or another direction. So in Hybrid, you're auraing one way, you've got like a zigzag, and you aura one way and then the other way, and it alternates. So it's an alternating aura, and that's exactly the same. So this is the kind of the band version, Hybrid, but then if you were to put it as a radial tangle, a radiating tangle, you get hurry. So these two are very similar in their kind of the way you construct them. You've got these V shapes, and you alternate side to side, and they're straight auras. Squill is very similar to hurry. It works in the same way. You start with this kind of X shape, which is aurad, and then you kind of add another one behind it. So these are very similar, but Squill starts with this big kind of C shape, a bit like a flattened crescent moon, I suppose, and then you add the alternating auras. Now, you know, you could do it in a different way, but that's how I interpreted it. It's not one that's been drawn. I've never seen anyone draw this or talk about it from Zentangle HQ. So that's just kind of my interpretation. It's like hurry, but with this initial kind of C shape that gets blacked in, and you don't have to black it in. You could fill it in with other things. So that was sort of following on from there. That was that day. Then all of my tangles kind of hang together quite well this week. From these three, we kind of took a sidestep to Betweed, which is very similar. It alternates, but they're not kind of auras. They're much more, the way the lines come together, they're much more sort of curvy. They're not, the spacing isn't as regular with these ones. And Betweed, you know, there's lots of options with Betweed. You can do like a Betweed star, so you could start with a kind of a star shape and then put Betweed and you get like a Betweed star, or in a band like Hybrid. So I didn't want to kind of pick on one of those to say this is Betweed, so I just drew a little corner of it really, because it can fit into any kind of triangle kind of space, anything that's a bit pointy. So on the same day as Betweed, I drew a Rucus, which actually feels a little bit more like hurry. We've got the alternating auras, but you start with the orb. It's a radiating tangle. So you start with the orb and the spokes, and then you are alternating aura around the orb, or around the spokes, or around the orb. So this is another alternating aura kind of, you get this kind of woven effect when you alternate the auras. So that's very similar again. And then Ix, which again does the same thing. We've got auras, we've got two components here. We've got this one kind of eye shape and this other eye shape that kind of makes an X, so I guess Ix, but I think this also stands for number 9, Roman number 9. The interesting thing about this one compared to some of the others is that you kind of aura it a couple of times, rather than alternating one aura, the other aura, one aura, the other. You've got a couple of auras, and then you alternate like every 2 auras, and you still get this lovely, this beautiful kind of woven effect because of that alternating aura. So finishing off those tangles that use that method, we've got Aura Knot, which can be any kind of shape that then gets filled in that way with an aura, and then alternating. You tend to kind of alternate around the shape on the inside, getting closer and closer to the middle. So they do alternate, but in a slightly more complex way. And then finally, we've got Elish, which I've actually drawn on its side, just because I wanted to kind of, if I'd drawn it the kind of the right way up, although there is no right way up, you would have lost a lot of that detail because of my embedded letters. So I kind of put it on its side, but you know, there is no right way up in Zentangle. You can look at things in a different way, but it is based on that kind of cursive letter L. So when you're used to looking at it, maybe you're kind of used to looking at it in the other orientation. This is another one where we start with quite a complex shape, but then the process of adding the bits around the outside is the, you know, aura one part and then aura another part. So you get this beautiful alternating auras which look like they're weaving. And this is a little bit reminiscent of Betweed, the way some of the auras kind of taper, and they're not all perfectly kind of straight like you might get in some of these other ones. So that's those ones. I only did 2 that day, just because these ones are a little bit more complex than some of the others. And then I jumped to kind of taking a back step, because these are pretty complex tangles, all the way back to a beautifully simple tangle, Hollyball. So this is just alternate random kind of strips. You make the strips and then you draw behind. So this is the basis of all drawing behind in all tangles. It's called the Hollyball technique when you're drawing behind, and the idea is that you just come, and as you approach the bit that's already there, you kind of skip behind it, you lift your pen off and then pop your pen back down to complete, and it looks like things are then going behind. It's called drawing behind, so or the Hollyball technique. And so all these other tangles kind of employ that. So from Hollyball I went to Facade, which is a little known tangle, but for me it's just a very kind of orderly Hollyball. So here this is completely random, the strips just go anywhere you like. Facade, you're like in one direction then another direction, then you're back in that first direction, kind of either side, and then you alternate. And sometimes it's drawn with orbs behind, but I wanted to just keep it simple and just show that alternating, kind of like a weave, I suppose, because you are alternating, it becomes more like a weave. And this is a fabulous one for filling with some fragments there. That could be really interesting. It's like a grid in itself. From Facade, I found Hazen. Now Hazen again is another straight line, drawn behind tangle, but the shapes that you're drawing are more complex. So these are just straight lines, you know, just straight strips. And here we've got these kind of squarish boxes that then kind of overlap, underlap, and you get this really nice kind of, again, sort of woven effect. It's not really weaving, but you know, layered effect. So that's Hazen. That's another little known on little drawn tangle, which is a bit of a shame because it's rather nice, a bit reminiscent of kind of the way Hurry is constructed with the kind of the cross in the middle. Oh, and Facade, although that's a kind of a single cross. I also then went to Spoken, which is another straight, you know, we've got these straight strips, but here we're radiating out from an orb, a little bit like a Rucus. You've got the orb and all the spokes radiate out in one direction first, and then you come back and weave them behind in the Hollyball fashion on the other side. And then we had Umbel, which is kind of an orderly, curvy version of Hollyball, which always kind of starts on the outside and then you get closer and closer to the middle. And these bands are usually drawn with a bit of a curve to them and also with an aura. You'll often see them blacked in the middle for a bit of drama, but you don't have to do that. And then on that day, I also looked at a tangle called Mysteria, which is often drawn with orbs in the gaps, but I think that's just a you know, something you can do, or you can choose to do, like a little bit of tipple behind there. For me, this tangle is about kind of a curvy, wavy version of Hollyball. So your strips are S shapes, and they, you know, start at a point and come back to a point. And yeah, so it's kind of a tangulation of Hollyball in that it's made with S shapes rather than straight lines. From Mysteria, that led me to these beautiful S shapes in a tangle called Quib, which kind of comes out from a little kind of slit in the page there and goes back into one. But it's definitely kind of a ribbon type tangle because it's going in one direction. But again, you've got these sort of ribbony, wavy strips that use the Hollyball technique to kind of go behind. You draw one and then you draw the next one behind. It's quite random. That one led me to changing, in that this is kind of random, but this felt like it was a more organised weaving type. You know, it's the same kind of S shape ribbon, but this one's organised in that you can kind of follow it through, and it looks like you've arranged it rather than just drawn it. And changing, of course, led me to Punsal, because I think these two had the same origins. This is more parallel. These are more kind of S shapes, a bit like Mysteria here. These S shapes, which you know, come to a point. So Punsal doesn't have to be drawn with those extra tails. You can just draw the middle bit, and it does look a lot like changing. This is a really one of my favourites. I love it. And that was the week that was, and I've just done these ones, Dion and Droop and Fracas and Xorus, and certainly this one feels a lot like this one to me. Similar kind of ideas, and I could have done some alternating auras on here. I chose not to, because I don't think that's the main part of the tangle. It may not be the main part of the tangle for this one either, but it's open to interpretation, I suppose. So all of these, there's lots here that are radiating tangles, radiating out from a central point, and with lots of symmetry there, lots of rotational symmetry, and that we'll see where we go from here. On to something different again, I think. There's lots still to explore. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you again soon. Bye.